Alrighty, I am here with Grant Swift. Grant, thank you for being here with me today. How are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah.
Awesome,
How are
awesome.
you?
It's good. It's good. Things are rolling. Things are fun. Well, we're just both talking about how we've been hopping around today, but nice to have a little bit of time to just unwind, relax. We're going to have some fun chit chatting about music and life and all good things like that. So thanks for being
Totally.
here. For those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting Grant or having your ears entertained by his music before, Grant is a live looping artist in New York, and he's phenomenal at what he does. So this is going to be a super fun conversation to unpack. We've been working together for a minute now, and it's been a blast. So with that, Grant, we have a recent-ish congratulations that I thought we could start with to top off this conversation here, that you have recently become a first-time dad. So huge congrats on that. How old is your
Wallace.
boy now?
Wallace is 8 weeks yesterday. No, 8 weeks yesterday. Yep. 8 weeks
Oh my
yesterday. So
gosh.
yeah, it's been a roller coaster. It's been really fun, honestly. Everyone's healthy and doing well, and that's good. It's hard to get enough sleep, like everyone always says. If I feel like I'm turning into a cliche of a first time parent because all the things that people say have become true and I now repeat them all the time. But it is hard to get enough sleep. It is very frustrating to be trying to soothe a crying baby at 3 in the morning. But
No.
it's also really fun and it's also like really rewarding. It's super cool to see life just grow and
Yeah.
change day to day. He's smiling and laughing as of like the last week, so it's really
Aw.
fun to do little things that make him smile and laugh. So that's very fun.
Oh my gosh.
It's cool. I'm kind of like constantly now adjusting to the how do you be a good parent and also be a self-employed musician at the same time. So that's kind of the challenge at the moment.
Yeah. And that's the journey. And we're doing this podcast. This is probably like 8 weeks. That's so fresh. Like this is the whirlwind like time period where things are just like, never mind sleep. We'll do that in in a few months. Like this is so
Yep.
thank you for taking the time. You're probably gonna wake up from this in a few months, be like, did I do a podcast? Did that happen?
Yeah, I already feel that way about things I did last week. So that's yeah.
All right. So this is the raw and real reality of balancing, new life also as an independent musician. Like what you're doing, your thing is completely on your own. You're doing the sales, you're doing and on top of that, it's not like you just do a little bit and you're full time. How many shows did you do last year? Like you've been hopping. Like what's your schedule usually like?
Was 205
Wild.
performances last, um,
Yeah.
which is very cool. I do kind of see it as as a personal milestone that I was able to perform that much. It was also, I mean, it was also my best year financially, but it's funny, like I do such a wide range of events, like from bigger corporate things to like very small, intimate, like birthdays and private parties and some bar restaurant gigs and things like that. That it's such a you know it the goal for 2025 is a soft goal because I'm not totally sure about how I feel about all this, but like the soft goal is perform less and make more revenue. But the
Mm,
but I do enjoy being flexible with
yeah.
doing everything from like kind of casual gatherings all the way up through like corporate and things and weddings and all that. So
Yeah. Absolutely. It's congrats, man. Like, I know we'll unpack more about that later, like how much you've just been. I mean, you've been an independent pro musician for a little bit now, but it's so cool to see that, you're not plateauing. Like, this is, we're still growing. Last year, you had a big jump, and I know you're going to keep improving that ratio of being able to climb your revenue and maybe even cut back because 200 is a lot. But absolutely. It's impressive for sure. And I know that, all those performances and all those people were super happy to have you. So it's amazing what you do. But yeah, okay. So with that, we're in the whirlwind of it. How do you foresee like what life will look like maybe in a few months balancing, or I guess how can we see what life is going to be like But how's it life balancing now being an independent musician, like plus a dad? Is it different? How has it been
Yeah,
for you?
I think it's really it does feel different, but it's also it's just a new it does just feel like a new stage and a new set of kind of goals and adaptations. I've never been someone, I think Allison, you and I are probably different in this way. I've never been someone who's really good at, like, I've never been good at setting a 5-year plan or anything like that, or talking about what I'm really I'm just basically not that good at setting concrete goals and taking incremental progress towards them. I've always been kind of fits and starts kind of person, and I'm sure a lot of musicians and artists and creative types can relate to this way of approaching things in life. And so I've obviously done okay for myself, and I've been able to implement certain positive habits and discipline and work ethic and all that. But this is like a whole new ball game now, where I have to be much more. I literally have like a whole page on my phone now that I've set up all these timer widgets, and
Oh
they're
my
just
gosh.
taking up pretty much the entire screen. And it's like every single one is just, okay, how much am I spending on this activity today, and how much can I spend on this activity such that I need to still fit in these 5 other activities today. And I feel like this is the kind of thing that like my teachers and my parents were probably trying to get me to do when I was like 13, and I just rejected it entirely. And now I'm finally at the ripe young 30, 39. Now I just turned 39 a few days ago, last week,
Oh, wow.
that I'm now finally getting the picture and putting putting it in practice. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's incredible, and you give me too much credit. I have a to-do list. I try to keep like things organized, but I make it so I can like be rebellious half the time. So it's hard to I know the challenges of like, time blocking, but yeah, like when you got like this little human
Right.
to work with too, it's like, okay, here we go. Time block, setting
To-do
things
list,
out. That's
to-do list
awesome.
is like, yeah, there's a lot of ways to cheat with the to-do list, and one of them is I'll find myself doing something that wasn't on the to-do list, but I kind of want to do it, and I finish the task, and I'm like, I'm going to put that on the to-do list just so I can check it right off because I just did it. It's like, retroactively adding and completing a task on the to-do list.
Yeah. It always feels good with those checks and stuff.
Exactly.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I mean, moving on to things that you're definitely like, I mean, you with like the time blocking and the tech behind it, I'm not surprised that you're working up some magic there. But moving on to things that you're absolutely an expert in, I want to talk more about your live looping craft, because what you do is you say you're like one man band, and it is the result that you provide. And it's so cool how you think about music, like how you think about arrangements, like, and you can kind of hear your interpretation of things has so much depth to it. So talk to us about this live looping thing that you kind of like taken as like your unique selling proposition. When did you introduce that into your offer, and like what sort of change has that made in your perception of like, or people's perception of you, and how's it changed like how you are doing business and all that? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think that uh I mean, the history of it is actually really just that I used to play with a friend of mine who I grew up with and have been writing music with too for a long time, since we were kids, basically. And we grew up kind of playing music together. We were in a band together. At some point, I was working for a nonprofit organization, and I lost my job. I got let go, and I um, very suddenly, and I was frustrated with it. But my buddy kind of said to me, "Hey, why don't we try to make 100% of our income from playing music?" And we kind of saw it as a challenge. I saw it as this
Mm.
kind of challenge to start, and we started doing it. I did take like a side gig doing some dog walking, and then that I later kind of developed a small dog walking business as well here in North Brooklyn. But I then we were able to like, yeah, we surprised ourselves, I think, in that we were kind of playing a lot of bars and restaurants, and we were getting hired for weddings and private parties and things like that. And it was really fun to just get paid to play music. And then all of a sudden my buddy kind of left. He moved to Houston actually. And I was I felt stuck without him. I was used to doing this duo thing, and we would harmonize, and we both played guitar and bass, and we could switch off on things. We were good at kind of playing off of one another. And
Hmm.
I started thinking, how can I do this by myself? I don't really know anyone who I trust enough who have that same kind of rapport with in order to
Hmm.
bring them into this. And so I started live looping. I just like bought a looper pedal, and because we still had gigs on the book, so I still had like a couple parties I had to do that I was supposed to show up with a duo, and I would apologize in advance and be like, "It's just me, you know, I'll give you some money back." And I instead just showed up at those gigs with a looping pedal, and I kind of tried
Yeah.
to fudge my way through it. And then I started having fun with that, and I realized that kind of became its own special challenge and fun thing for me. And then it turned from, okay, let me just accompany myself with a simple guitar line, or a backing beat hitting on my guitar and creating kind of a backing track of like rhythm, into, okay, what are some like creative ways that I can kind of use this that isn't just using a backing track, because you can always just like use a drum machine and plug that in and play along to that. And I started to kind of appreciate more the art and the kind of finesse of what's a good arrangement, what's a good arrangement that I can kind of come up with in the moment, and what
Mm.
can I in some cases, what I'm experimenting a lot with these days is like, what can I use in the environment? So I've got like the ability now to like, I'll record sometimes like someone just saying something, um,
No
where like,
way.
I'll talk, yeah, I'll have a conversation with someone before a gig, and I'll just ask them if I can record them with the iPad. And I've only done this a couple times like live, but I'm trying to incorporate it more. But where I can then take that voice and I can chop it up into samples and use parts of that during the performance. And so I like the live aspect of it. I like the fact that um there's no two performances that are ever exactly the same, even though I'll play some covers that I play all the time, like several times a week. Sometimes there are songs that I've played hundreds of times, but every single time it's a little bit different, because I'm either going to play it faster or slower. I'm going to start with a drum loop in this case, and maybe just some scratchy guitar sounds in this other case, or maybe a totally random sample in this other case. And sometimes I'll make it sound like a jazz song, and sometimes I'll make it sound like a pop song, and sometimes I'll make it sound like a kind of heavy rock song. And it's fun to kind of keep it um, keep it fresh. I like the live aspect of it. I like the fact that I'm bringing the environment into the performance.
Oh my gosh, Grant, this is so good. I'm so glad this is recorded because like there's so much gold in there. We got to work into some of your messaging because I love I didn't even realize excuse me, so much of that about what you do. And you would like this would be such viral content for you. I'm telling you, like if someone came like if you were recording you like, hey, like sing a this or this do that, and then like you show up like putting it together and then like you show the performance and then it'd be like, oh yeah, that's what I'm telling you, Grant, that would be huge. I've seen things like that before where like someone will be like composing a song. It's a similar idea. Like this one girl, I forget if I find her, I'll link it, but she like goes around like asking people to like sing a melody or something, and then she like composes a symphony with it or whatever. That's like kind of a different thing. But like
Yeah,
that could be such an interactive, cool thing that you're selling because it's also
yeah,
like, hey, like we're gonna have fun at your event because like I'm gonna be like getting your guests involved type thing. Oh,
right.
okay. You don't have to, but I'm just saying that would be I think that'd
No,
be cool.
that is exactly where I'm headed. I mean, that's where I think that's where I'm going with this, is like trying to get more audience participation in like a more direct sense. Like I think in a way that's the fun of the live looping, is that you always every performance is going to feel a little different because of the vibe and because of the people who are there and because of the ambiance and all that. But no, but I'd like to kind of move towards actually getting more of a real time kind of feedback loop of people being able to contribute to the song a little bit. One of the most fun, as a tangent, but one of the most fun gigs I think I did in recent memory was I got hired to help a company that was visiting. They're actually a German company. They were visiting the US for a big conference, and they hired me to write a song with them. Um, they gave me some lyrical kind of basic background, and I kind of wrote lyrics and chords and a melody and all this, and then I helped them record it. We like actually booked out a recording studio and we
Oh,
recorded
no
it,
way.
and it was really fun to just get everyone involved in the recording. People who had never sang a note before were suddenly, I was getting them to sing things if they weren't tone deaf, and I was getting people who were tone deaf to kind of like just like a little. We put like some. I remember we had like some vocal part. It was just like a monologue thing in the beginning, and we had fun with it. I was able to get everyone involved at some point in this creation of this song, and that was really rewarding. It was really fun.
Oh my gosh, Grant. Okay, I'm just putting it out there. Like next time you're doing something that you think you might be able to get some cloud aspects on, just if you have someone recording stuff and if you just send me a
Yeah,
messy folder of all that content, like I will go through it with you and we'll see if we can make something. Like
cool.
I would just love to. I've gone my history going viral before if it's of interest of you to you is
Yeah,
seldom. It hasn't been a main goal, but I think that we could make something real fun. But in any case, okay, so one other thing that like is popping out to me in this is that you're saying that no two performances are the same. So is that like how much are you pre-planned before you get to a performance? Like, do you know what songs you're going to play? Are you just like listening and feeling the crowd and then deciding what to play from there? And it kind of turns out different than it did last time. I'm just super curious about like what that creative process is for you in the moment.
yeah. If it's a gig that feels like, I mean, obviously, if there are specific requests from the client, like they want a country western kind of theme or something, like I'm going to pick out
Mm-hmm.
songs ahead of time that I think will work nicely within that theme. Especially if it's a genre or a style that I'm not as comfortable in. I'd say my sweet spot is something between kind of old timey R&B and jazz and soul and classic rock, and less so maybe like country, less so maybe pop, but still love country and pop. But it's like the when I'm, I might fill out a set list more if I know, okay, I'm not gonna. It's gonna be easier to have a kind of background template of what I need to play in this set, then I want to go by the set list. But very often, most of the time, I like to just kind of show up. Maybe I have one or two songs that I know will go over well, or something I've been playing a lot recently that I know will go over well. But I like to kind of show up and then put together the set list on site, like take just 10 minutes before I start to kind of like read the crowd, read the room, see the age of people, see what their vibe is, and kind of make some predictions. And then uh, I always ask a client ahead of time when I talk to them before we book, like, what are your favorite artists? What are your favorite songs? Um, and just to get a kind of, again, background kind of template of what I think will work. And then I take that and I take the vibe and the crowd attentiveness and the ages and everyone and all that into account. And then I kind of put together a set list. And then I absolutely 100% never stick to it. I just change the completely, like halfway through. I not completely, but I will totally change the order of songs, or I will
You're
throw
like
in
me with
something
my
that I will
to-do list. Like,
exactly. Yeah, it's just not it. I get more fun, I think, out of trying something a little bit different, here or there, or so much of I feel like you can everyone any even a non-musician can hear this, right, when they're trying listening to Spotify these days.
mhm.
The algorithm has gotten really good at putting together at uh creating like set lists, creating a playlist. Like if you it kind of knows like tempo, and it knows intensity, like it knows dynamics, and like to put
Mhm.
you don't want to go from like loud song to soft song to loud song to
Right.
soft song. It's good to have a little bit of a more broader arc to some of these things, and that's very true in a set list. Sometimes you're losing people's attention, and you can tell that the vibe is kind of dying down. You want to pick it back up. You want to do maybe I only had like one or two songs in this next little wave that are kind of upbeat and intense. Okay, I'm going to add like a third or fourth, and we're going to keep it we're going to ride this wave a little bit longer, and then we'll kind of come down. And so I enjoy being able to do that. And I've never been able to nail the formula, for what is like the perfect number of high intensity upbeat songs to play before you play a kind of down tempo song. To
Mm.
me, it just feels like it changes every time,
Mm.
and every crowd is a little bit different. So, um, I, so I like just being flexible with it and kind of deciding in the moment. And that's also one of the fun things about like live looping is that, or at least it's easier to take that approach when you're doing something like live looping, as opposed to other artists I know who are using backing tracks or have like all these very complex MIDI controlled kind of patches and changes that happen between different songs. Cause it's like you might have practiced a set and you have like 10 songs in a row that you're like, okay, this on song number 7, I have to then hit these buttons so that I'm set up for song number 8. And then after song number 8, I can use the same guitar tone to go into get song number 9. And, then you're kind of stuck doing things the way that all your software and hardware is set up to do. And I
Mm.
like the flexibility of the live looping, where I might just very often I'll play like 5-10 songs in a row where I'm using the looping and I'm using a backing beat and all that stuff, and then I'll just be like, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna just like walk around with make my electric guitar sound like an acoustic guitar. I'm gonna not use any live looping. I'm just gonna walk around the room using my wireless headset mic and my wireless transmitter on my guitar and just play play an acoustic guitar basically, and sing to people without using any other kind of backing. Uh,
Uh, this is so interesting. Grant, if you ever have a client who's just like, so what's the experience like working with you? Just send them this podcast, because this is like, oh my gosh. This is so interesting.
I
I'm
would love
excited. I want to
to
come.
for this for sure.
No, okay. That's interesting, comparing and contrasting like backing tracks, which is very like rigid, versus like live looping. You're able to like ebb and flow a little bit more to the room and to, what different things to work with around the room in terms of environment and the vibe and all of that. So that's very interesting, and like again, very cool, unique selling proposition as well. What is like, if we're comparing and contrasting then you going from live, or you having your little duo band to live looping, what are kind of the pros and cons making that transition? And are you happy like having the being solo ultimately now, or what would you say are kind of like the highlights and lowlights there?
I feel like the the highlight is the same thing that I feel like everyone is. It's it maybe sounds a little cynical, but I don't think it really is. It's hard to work with other musicians very often. Like it's
Mm,
hard to, especially when you are performing as many times in a year as I'm trying
yeah,
to perform. Very it's hard to like manage people's schedules. It's hard to get
yeah,
enough practice in. It's hard to rely on, let alone one other person, like 3 or 4 other people if you're playing in a bigger band. Know that everyone is learning the parts, everyone is practicing the same amount, everyone is kind of doing the bare minimum they need to do, and then you all need to show up at the gig on time, and then you all need to,
yeah,
it's like a lot to ask. I think it's a lot to ask for people, especially in this modern environment. Um and I think I was very lucky that the guy who I'm still very close with and still we collaborate, we were just, we were so close, we were basically family, in a sense that we were going to try to find a way of making those things work. But there's a lot of people who just, you don't have that relationship with. Like there's a
yeah.
ton of musicians. It's like, I've been in the situation before where it's like someone just doesn't show up to the gig, and you just like
Not
suddenly get
cool.
ghosted by someone, or
Yeah,
a situation where some, crazy, terrible thing happens in someone's life and suddenly they're no longer available. And then, um, but then you have to spend time finding someone else, and I find it easier to rely on the uncertainty that comes from live looping and the technology and the things that I know I'm going to be responsible for and I'm going to mess up.
yeah.
I still find that easier very often to rely on consistently than relying on other people's schedules and all that kind of stuff. That said, I love playing with other musicians, and I
Right.
want to do more of it, and I think more people should do it. It's just, I think yeah, I think that for me, making this work also financially is just, it's, you can make more money when you are only doing it by yourself. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, a soloist commands less of a rate than like a four-piece band does, right? But per musician, I tend to get paid a little bit better than a member of a four-piece band on average. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So
that's a
I
perfect
can't remember
breakdown.
how exactly I can't remember exactly how you worded your question, Allison, and if I
You
answered
nailed
it,
it.
but
You nailed
okay.
it. Yeah, yeah. Just and that is what exactly what I've seen to be true myself, and working with other people is, as it's rewarding in some ways, but also is challenging in some ways. And I think
Right.
especially for like a band, where you guys are singing and like being able to riff off each other, like it's not like what I do, where it's like, okay, find another violinist to read the sheet music. It matters a lot that you have the right person that you're connecting with. Not like it doesn't with strings.
Right.
Hopefully, no one
No,
takes
I think
offense.
that,
But
yeah,
like,
and I think,
yeah,
yeah, no, and I think that creatively, I would just want to add there that, like, creatively, I think it's so rewarding to work with other people
right.
because you can wear too many hats all at once, and that can often kill the creative process. Like, if
Mm,
you, I try to I write and record music too myself, and I always find it more difficult to, uh, I don't often feel as good about what I produce when I'm producing it by myself as I do when I'm working with someone else. Because when you're working with
mm,
someone else, you're always just, um, you kind of, it's easier to fall into a relationship and an expectation that someone, okay, I'm doing my part, this person is doing their part, we're producing this thing. Sometimes you might be disappointed with the outcome. Sometimes the outcome is so much better than you could have possibly imagined. But that's kind of built into, I think, the creative process in a way. And whereas, but when it comes to performing music for gigs and trying to make money and treating it like a business, it is definitely, I found, easier to rely on a fewer number of people rather than a larger number of people.
yeah, for sure. Definitely simpler. And hey, like what you sometimes the constraints creates the creativity, and you took that constraint of like, oh
Totally.
no, it's just me, and you turned it into like a whole bunch of creativity that wouldn't have existed otherwise. So I think it's very beautiful what you've been able to build and put together. But yeah, switching a little bit of gears here, because you mentioned it briefly there, to more of the business side. And last year was a year where we, around this time, we got on call like, hey Grant, like what's your goal for next year? And like you said, because you were like talking hinting about this earlier, like I don't know if I'm the person who's like gonna make a make a goal, we'll see. But I was super happy for you to see how much that you grew, and I know that you're a super deep thinker, so I'm just curious to ask you now, like what's your philosophy on goal setting now? Do you think I know you mentioned now you're making soft goals. Again, I know you're in dad mode. And again, like I really hope that you can like get more rest. And thank you again for being here. So no pressure to make like crazy goals or anything right now. But I'm just curious about your philosophy on goal setting, because it seemed to work out in your favor a bit there. What's your thinking around that?
Yeah. I think that, uh, I'm very much right now in the stages of what can I accomplish kind of this week, and what can I
Yeah.
accomplish next, and so it's kind of maybe shorter time scale. But um I think, I don't know, I think the goal setting is good for, uh if you're worried you're not going to be able to get something done. I mean, setting a goal and trying to, can kind of put in perspective what needs to be done in order to get there. I think that a
Yeah.
lot of the goals I've set for myself, like last year, for example, that we've talked about, are, um, which I kind of, none of it feels like, if I'm being totally completely honest with my, like, I don't
Please
think
do.
I actually accomplished any of them. Like, but I got close to several
So
of them,
close. Yeah.
and very close. And some of them are, ones that I'm now going to complete in the next, like,
Yeah.
in the coming days or weeks, months. And so, like, it's still something that was worth putting down and worth acknowledging to myself I wanted to complete it. Um, but other things kind of come up, like the set list, like the set list and the reading the room. It's like there's other things that come up that you kind of adjust to. And if I was constantly readjusting the goal post and adjusting what it is I'm actually aiming towards, then I did accomplish a lot. Totally accomplished a lot of goals last year. It's just they weren't the things that I kind of set out to at the start of the year, because I'm not very good at setting out uh, the one thing and then knowing the me. I don't know what I'm going to be. The me in July of 2025 feels maybe very differently about some of the things that the me in February of 2025 wants to do. And so I acknowledge that that is the case. And I think it's okay. I think it's okay to kind of just change your approach partway through the year, and decide
Yeah.
you want to try something different, or decide something else is less important to you than it was 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because especially thinking out like on year time scales, I find it challenging. And it's no matter what, not gonna go according to plan. And the things we do, like I've never hit a goal on time, I think even once. So it's like, you know what I mean? I think the act can still be useful because then we can recalibrate, readjust, and be able to stay focused on new things, which I think that
I
you
think
did a fabulous job of.
Yeah, my philosophy on goal setting is really just that I think I'm probably not the best person to define what's really good about setting goals, because I think I've always been a little bit resistant to the whole process of, you know, how do I set out something that I'm going to, like, months or years in advance, that I'm then going to do. I'm always much more cognizant of how life. I love that John Lennon quote. I think it was that life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. And
Mm.
that's, to me, sums it all up. We decided my wife and I decided a couple years ago that we were probably pretty interested in trying to have a kid, but you never know how long it's going to take to have a kid. Like, a lot of people some people are very lucky and they instantly try to have a kid and they have a kid. Other
Yeah.
people, it takes months and months and sometimes years. And so uh, there's that. There's also, things changing in life. There are people in my life and situations in my life that health problems and things that you need to kind of then devote more time to and focus on than you were anticipating, and that's the way life goes. So I have always been, I think, to people who are good at setting goals, I think they also probably grant themselves a certain amount of liberty and license to change those goals and understand when other things become more important. And I think um, I've always thought that goal setting has felt somewhat more restrictive to me. Like, I have to keep one goal in mind if I'm going to set it, and at the expense of everything else. And that's just not the way life generally goes. So,
Mm. Those You touched on so many important things there, and I think you're right. I think you're changing my thinking too. I think if we're not careful, it can steal from being present. If we're having an unhealthy relationship, perhaps with like, okay, it must be done this way, and this is the plan. So I think looking forward, but never at the cost of losing like whatever that quote is that you just said by John Lennon or something
yeah.
was perfect.
I
Yeah,
think it's John Lennon. I think life is what happens while you're busy making other plans.
yeah, that's wild. That's wild. Yeah, yeah. No, that's so true because like these are the moments. This is the moments that we enjoy, and I think that's music is so important for helping others be present. It's something that we can't not be present while we're doing, right? And
Absolutely.
not thinking
That's
about.
Yeah, and that's something that
Yeah.
I think you mentioned wanted to maybe also talk about today, but is that uh, the I feel that way, that relationship with music has become so much more um, prominent in my awareness since having a kid too. Is just like
Mm.
the visceral impact and enjoyment of music. Like, I have been playing music for Wallace when he's upset, or looks like
Oh.
he wants to focus on, and I've been picking up my guitar and just kind of creating a song, or sometimes, like, playing with him on the floor, and he might be getting a little bit antsy and fussy, and I'll just like drum my hands right next to his head and create a little rhythm. And it's amazing
Yeah.
how fast it just like he gets kind of enthralled by what's going on and just
Wow.
stops being fussy or stops worrying about whatever else it is that a baby's mind is worrying about. And it's really interesting to see that kind of visceral impact of music. And I in a way that has yeah, I think that has also made me tapped me into what I enjoy about that. I've been listening to more music than I typically do. Um, since being a dad. And also spending time at home, I should add, as a pragmatic piece of this conversation. If you live in New York, there are some good options for buying an individual paid family leave um, insurance policy for self employed people. And I have been able to take advantage of that as a self employed person. I was able to buy a paid family leave policy for a very cheap amount of money ultimately. And I'm getting paid to take time away with my kid, which is wonderful. So um, that, uh, but in the process of spending so much time just like being a parent, I think I'm. It's those little things. It's those it's the little things of just realizing what music makes you feel and what oh, this rhythm just like really is intoxicating for some reason, and I don't really know why. Like
Mm.
getting to spend time with those thoughts and those feelings is like is a lot of fun, and it's what to me makes it music so enjoyable. And and then the broader lesson for me is that I realize when I spend more time with those moments and more time appreciating music in that way, I generally feel like a better person. I just feel
Mm.
more focused. I feel more uh, kind of committed to finishing my goals and following through
Wow.
on things. I feel better day to day. As yeah, I just feel like I'm a more I feel like I'm a better parent, a better partner, a better member of a community. So
Wow. So much what you just said there just like struck a chord so much. I this morning I for years made the mistake of thinking, okay, if I'm going to like, be behind the scenes for music, I'm practicing is in the past and making music's in the past. I got to spend all my
right,
attention here and sacrifice. It's a terrible mistake. If something gives you energy, then like that's the best investment you can make is to like do that. Like this morning, I spent an hour working on like practicing the song that I wrote, and I was sad. I know this sounds silly, but I was usually most mornings I wake up happy, but sometimes I don't. And I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling great.
yeah,
But then after, like, it's like fueling. It's hard to
yeah,
describe, but yeah, it's a real thing. And like I think about it, like people think that music is this like not important thing, or they kind of a lot of cultural like interpretation of musicians is like what they're doing is just maybe I don't know.
hmm
Sometimes it feels like people don't think it's important. I think this is literally the programming for humans. Like I think like most of history, like they didn't write things
100%.
down. How they remembered
No,
things by like singing things. You know what I mean? Like
I'm
it's the
with
code
no,
that we were made on.
totally. It's also very yeah, like it's I love there's a musicologist who I follow named Ted Gioia,
Okay.
Gioia is his last name, but he writes a lot about music and the mysticism of music and if you think about I mean it's so important. It's been so important in so many civilizations since the
Yeah.
dawn of man, and it is an incredibly it's not just like some I don't know frivolous art form. It's like people have psychedelic experiences listening to music. I mean, they like have, and they always have. They contemplate their lives listening to music. They experience total shifts in consciousness listening
Mhm.
to music. Um, and we maybe aren't always tapped into that power because I think music is so ubiquitous in our culture,
Mm.
and we're around and we use it in so many different ways. We also have such short attention spans that it's like someone decided kind of 50 some odd years ago that 3.5 minutes was the ideal time for a song, and so we all like now strive to make songs that are only 3.5 minutes in length. Whereas like people in drum circles and people who get together to kind of create music with um, with a very repetitive kind of rhythmic and melodic patterns, it's like you often will listen to those things for like 10, 20 minutes at a time, and that is often what it takes to get your brain into like some of these I think altered states or
Yeah.
and when I say altered states, it's not like you start hallucinating this, but just like even even just like people who've experimented with binaural beats, or if you've ever
Yeah,
meditated along with
I was
music,
thinking that.
or you are, yeah, or people who do yoga along with music and stuff. I mean, the ways in which music operates in those capacities, it's about spending time with it. It's about spending like get really sinking into the music. And so we so rarely, I think, appreciate that aspect of um of music, both creating it and listening to it. So yeah, I'm with you totally too. That it's like if that gives you that energy, isn't it kind of funny? It's kind of there's an irony, I think, in modern life that it's so hard for me to get myself to sit down and practice sometimes and just do the thing that um it's like I don't want to do it, and it feels like, oh, this isn't, I don't have time for this, I don't have time to like do this thing. And then once you do it, it's like the most energizing thing. It's so wonderful.
Mm,
You're like,
yeah.
you can feel so good for having spent just like 40 minutes practicing a piece.
Hmm.
It's really bizarre, right? That we have
Yeah.
such a dichotomous relationship to it. It's both this incredible thing and this thing that we feel like is not important. We should push that off and like not do it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all good things are like that. You know what I mean? The things that you are hard to start, but then you're happy to do them later. Like, I think that's all good things. And then those things that are easy to
Yeah.
start that you regret later, those are the things, you know what I mean? Like the
Well
scroll, it's
said,
like so
Alex.
easy to start, but then it's like, ah, I hate myself. Why did I do
Yeah.
that for an hour?
Well said. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. No, you're not alone. You're not alone. That's just the reality of life, man. Getting
Yeah.
to the gym, same thing. Eating the vegetables, whatever it is. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's real.
Totally.
So, so what I'm curious what you think about modern music then, because like you mentioned one thing, someone decided perfect length of a song is 3.5 minutes. Do you think that we're so used to listening to so much music that that's why people don't maybe pay attention or value it as much? Or do you think it's the quality is just like it's all just kind of reused and not as unique as it once used to be, so people don't value as much? I'm curious, like what's your perspective just on the music that's mostly coming out these days?
I mean, I don't think it's good. Maybe it sounds a little heavy-handed to put it this way, but I mean, I was just thinking like I think it's kind of the same thing that has happened with food too, right? It's like
Mm,
we've prioritized convenience and like caloric intake over um, these other, culinary traditions, for example, that like would have you eating more vegetables and have you eating a wider variety of kind of nu- getting nutrients from a lot of different types of foods. Um, and there's and so like that's why fast food is so successful. It's like McDonald's is one of the best businesses in the world. Like it's incredibly profitable, incredibly successful business idea. um I think that in a way music has done the same thing. It's become
mm,
bite-sized kind of portions. It's like people still recognize what they love about melody and what they love about like a good lyric or and a good hook and a good rhythm, and like there's still tons of good music being made even in like the pop and modern pop idioms. I totally believe that, but it's the focus has become kind of like a TikTok video. It's like, what can I digest in a short amount of time that makes me feel a certain way? And that like
mm,
dopamine feedback loop has just become like the kind of primary thing we're focused on, as opposed to um, there's not that many people today, and there probably never were. I mean, like I think like, but there's not that many people today who really want to like dive into like a 20-minute movement from a symphony, and analyze
mm.
that and think about all the different, there's just um though I've read that in some ways classical music is coming back, I think thanks to like streaming and things like that. But it's very
Mhm.
that's a lot to ask of people. That
Right.
requires, I think, a much broader um you have to kind of really build your taste in a way that like our culture doesn't encourage people to do. It's just a
Mm.
lot more fun and easy to kind of like, I don't know, listen to 3-minute pop songs on a playlist while you go for a run or exercise than it is to um sit around in a circle and share
Hmm.
and share like a 10-minute uh you know some 10
Idea.
minute movement symphony or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. That's so interesting. It's like how you make the comparison of fast food. It's like, how do we commercialize things to the maximum? And that's great for business sometimes, but at what cost? We have shorter,
Yeah,
like,
if you think about just
more
what
restricted
music is
palettes.
good for. No, yeah, totally. It's
Mhm.
music is, and people we still find good music through those means. It's like I still
Mhm.
think I mean, I think like a fresh egg McMuffin from McDonald's is still like one of the most amazingly delicious things.
Let's be real. Yeah.
But but it's but if you um but think about like how often we think of music in terms of like commercials. Like there's a style of music that I instantly think of car commercial. And then there's like a
Mm.
certain, piano sound and with a lot of reverb, and I'm just like, okay, diamond commercial. Like there's always there's we really associate a lot of, I think, music with um with like commercial endeavors, and just a uniquely modern thing. I think
Yeah.
that's something that, yeah.
Uh, so fascinating, Grant. I love how you're just like I know I knew you're a deep thinker, but I'm still amazed by some of the new perspectives. We've known each other for like over a year now, and so hearing new ways of thinking about things from you. That's awesome. But where do you find yourself? Like, obviously you're a music maker and you're doing this full time as a living. Do you try to incorporate ideas that have a little bit more depth into your music, or it's like, okay, like just pop, here we go, what gets the crowds going? Where are your interests taking you? You also said that you're listening to more things these days. Where are your musical interests taking you personally lately?
Yeah. Thanks for that question. I think that I'm always, I think if I'm being honest, I'm always trying to kind of think about how can I contribute to a culture that appreciates music in a different way. That's not
Hmm.
just kind of commercially small bite-sized pieces of rehashed kind of ideas. Like what's something that pushes the boundaries? What's something that changes, kind of pushes up against the barriers a little bit and gets people to think about these things in different ways. And so that motivates me. And so I think that's also what motivated me about doing more live looping, is just that it's a little bit different than everything else. I like to tell people, I like playing with the fact that, what I'm doing is similar to what a DJ can do for a party, but still very different. And finding those people who are willing to kind of um take a little bit of a risk with me, and like
Mm.
instead of hiring a DJ, and saying, okay, like we're gonna hire someone who maybe doesn't have the ability to just on a complete dime you know, uh this like down tempo Whitney Houston to like Dua Lipa, like over, in a span of a second. But it's going to maybe feel a little bit more, um, it's going to feel a little bit more, what am I trying to say? Like, uh, reflective of our, our party and our environment and the people
Mm.
who are here and the vibe and the vibe everyone's kind of feeling today. Like there's something special about his performance. Is going to feel very, organic and live in that way. Not to
Hmm.
say DJs can't, aren't influenced by the vibe of the people. They totally are. But, working with a pre-recorded track is just going to always be a little bit less live than working
Hmm.
with something that you're creating in the moment.
Yeah.
And so uh, there's, I think I like that, not only because I find it fun and I think it sounds good, but also because I think it's a little challenging. There's something about it that challenges
Yeah.
people's people's desires and perspectives on music, and I enjoy getting to see. I really enjoy like when I feel like I can see someone who's kind of a little bit skeptical of like what I'm doing, but then they start to get it or they start to appreciate it, and I can kind of turn that person. Like that's that's really that's
Yeah.
when I
Oh.
feel like I can do that. Um, so that's where I think that's a lot of what motivates me. And I think I try to bring a more diverse set of kind of sounds and influences into the music I'm making personally too. I like to think I'm always trying to broaden my horizons and listen to stuff I don't that I wouldn't normally listen to. Like I feel like if you compare my tastes today to my tastes of 5 or 10 years ago, there are some things that kind of run through everything for sure. Like I love pop music and I also love classical music and I really like jazz. But there are also always different things. Well, I was just listening to Tune Yards the other day. Their latest, no, it's not their latest album. They just remastered it. It's a 2014 album that they just remastered. But Tune Yards is really cool. Check out Tune Yards.
Tune Yards.
Yep, Tune Yards. Very,
Okay.
very interesting. Yeah.
Taking note. I'm definitely gonna check that. Never heard of them. What style are they, or what genre?
It's hard to define, actually. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's
That's how you know it's good.
it's a little bit it's a little bit it's like electronic electronic poppy R&B hip hop. It's like very it's like very it's very melodic. Like
Okay.
it's basic. I think I could be wrong here, but I think it's basically the project of this one female vocalist and instrumentalist, and she has a really cool voice, and she's got um, writes some interesting melodies, and it kind of shifts between kind of more of a speaking voice and more of a singing voice. And there's a lot of interesting sounds. You've got a mix of like very organic sounds and also very electronic sounds in each song, and really cool rhythmic patterns and different instrumentation. It's all over the place. Yeah,
I dig it.
that, and also what also you should check out is I think it's called Salt. Is that who I was listening to the other day? It's yeah, let's see. Yeah, Salt. SAULT.
Okay.
SAULT. Very cool. Very cool group.
All right. Well, we're all gonna have our playlist made up. In addition to yours, we're gonna be dropping your links, including your Spotify, underneath.
Awesome.
In this recording, of course. Yeah. Well, with that, I know. Again, you're in a season of life where we're living, just like getting through each day. Do you see yourself writing songs again is that something you'd like to get back into yourself at some point again?
Yeah, honestly, I've probably written more since having a kid than I did in the 6 months before that. So
No way. Here we go. This is good.
In the last 8 weeks, I feel like I've become, again, I think thanks to having a little time off due to paid family leave, when I have that melody or some rhythmic idea just bouncing around in my head, I have a little bit more liberty to kind of go and explore that and sit down at the piano or sit down with my guitar and kind of, figure something out. So there's a song that I just finished that I kind of wrote wrote like right after Wallace was born. And so and that one is I'm hoping, I want to record that and get that out. I watched your interview with, was it Greg, about streaming and success on Spotify, which in my view is so hard. It's so like incredible that someone gets millions of streams, because that's really what you need to make a decent living through streaming. Is hundreds of thousands and millions of streams. But it's very but getting there is getting there can be tricky. But the key, in this modern era, is definitely putting out material consistently, and that's something I haven't done in a while, but I want to do more of, for sure. That's a goal.
But for sure, that's a goal. We got the goal.
Go.
Grant, please, I love this. Let us know when it happens, and we all want to listen to what you're making. We'd love to see you making more music again. That's awesome. Very cool. Alrighty, Grant. So this has gone by super fast. You've been a super cool guy to hang around with in our community, our pro level community. And it's been a blast having you, and you're always adding so much there. I'm curious, what have you found? What's your experience been like, maybe for others who are out there who are interested in what we're doing behind the scenes? It's pretty much just like this, guys. But what's it been like hanging out with other guys at your level and kind of being able to, mastermind together on the other random things we're doing there? Curious what that has been like for you, having other people around who are on similar paths.
It's been really rewarding. I think that I definitely owe a good amount of my success over the last year to to make to this group and to making those connections, because it's I've said elsewhere before, I think that for me a lot of it just comes down to the accountability and the fact that when I'm um, uh, yeah, I don't want to simplify it to just accountability, but it's for me, it's easy that when I discover something is hard and then I see something is not really paying off as quickly as I would like it to pay off. It's easy for me to get discouraged and then just
Mm,
put it to the side for a while.
yeah.
It's uh it's easier to not do that, or it's harder to do that. I should say, when you have a group of people who are kind of like pushing you a little bit and telling
Yeah.
you like, hey, we see what you're doing here and this is really working, and you might not be getting seeing the fruits of that labor right now, but you will in a few months. And I can tell you because it happened to me, and we share a lot of stories with one another and share similar kind of like difficulties we've had, and challenges, and we're all kind of doing. It's there's a lot of similarity between everyone in the group in a lot of ways, but there's also a lot of difference. Like there's not we're all kind of doing slightly different things than one another, and we have different strengths and weaknesses for sure. So um it's valuable in that way. There's always something I can kind of learn from someone else. And it's fun to share the things that you know with other people too. So um
Yeah.
I think that sums it up for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really get all that out of this group.
Yeah, for sure. No, that sums it up. That's sums up what community does. You don't really know specifically all the time, like how this is going to help, but it's like, oh, we're doing this together and we're going to help each other get it done. We're going to figure it out together. So yeah, it's been awesome journeying with you. Super excited for you. Again, congrats on Wallace and this new season of life. And yeah, when you let us know, just like pull the trigger on, like, yeah, ready for more accountability. I think that songwriting and the and the I still think that would go viral if we got you some of those
Hmm.
videos of you like making content or making music with people. I think people would like just dig that. But
We got to
anyways,
get more.
when you're ready, I'll leave in your part.
We
But
will.
this
Yeah.
Grant, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you on the internets? Is it Grant Swift everywhere? Like, I know it's grantswift.com, but if you can rattle those
Yeah.
out, we'll
Uh,
we'll link it
you
below
should
for
go to,
people as well.
yeah. Grantswift.com is my website, and that's mostly geared around my kind of private bookings and performance business. But you can find a link to my original music there as well. You can also go to grantswift.music, which is a kind of new site for me, but hosts a lot of my original
You
material.
made one of
Uh,
those?
I did. If you go to grantswift.music, you should be able to see it.
I'm
Um,
checking it out
and
now.
check it out. And then on Instagram and Facebook, it's Grant Swift Music. Instagram.com/Grant Swift Music. And I have not been that active on social media since I became a father. So that's a habit I need to kind of get back into doing. So that's on the docket. But I will definitely be putting out more content soon. I think I dropped like maybe one more video since I became a dad, but I need to get more out there for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
well, awesome. No pressure. Take care. Enjoy these moments. Let's hear. It's always going to be a different new moment, and staying present, making music with your kiddo. I can't think of anything better to focus on right now. But yeah, this doc music, like people were talking about these doc music pages. I don't really understand everything about them,
right.
but it looks sharp. Looks super cool. Love that.
Thank
But
you.
anyways,
Yeah, good.
Grant, this
Yeah.
has been an absolute pleasure hanging out together. Thanks so much for jumping on the pod. And of course, we're going to be hanging out, seeing you around. And yeah, see you again. All right.
All right. Thank you, Allison. Yeah.
Thanks. See ya.